Happiness through curiosity on the Ranveer Show. I know about Crips and Bloods. While I sit in India, while I sit in Mumbai, I've gotten to know about Crips and Bloods culture from hip hop, from American television, etc., etc. But for people who don't know what Crips and Bloods means, I'd love for you to explain that. And secondly, generally, if you could give us an overview of the gang culture that's growing in America. Is it growing, or is it plateaued out, or is it going down?
See, I think that culture is based on my analysis of what is a gang member. Because I have many friends who are gang leaders and who have had this gang background, but they are my friends. And based on the stories that I've heard from them, they have come into that culture because of a lack of love in the home. Like, for example, one of my friends, Jason, his father pointed a gun at him and he has seen his mother being abused. So he has not received the love of his father. This is the starting point, because love is something that every child wants. And you don't get that at home. So you're looking for, where do you get it? And that is where you go on the street and your group of friends on the street are accepting you for who you are. And that is where that lifestyle starts. And my experience is that because these gangsters or whatever criminals you call it, actually they have a lot of courage, Ranveer. Because they are doing things that you and I are not doing, because we are fearful that, if I break the traffic light, I might be booked. I might go to jail. But now these guys have done those acts and have already gone in jail. So they are showing courage for the wrong reason. And that happens, Ranveer, because when you go into this gang world, you are judged by how brave you are, how macho you are. So they have certain initiation processes, and I'm privy to some because that's what I've heard. And one such process, if you allow me to share, is when you drive on the freeway and it's dark. So usually the protocol is you turn on your headlights. So one of the initiation processes is whoever has not put their headlights on the other side when they are driving on the other side, you have to flicker at them to tell them that, hey, you need to turn on your headlights. But the initiation process requires you to take a U-turn and eliminate that person.
You have to kill someone while you're driving if they've not put the headlights on.
Yeah, on the other side, but you have to take a U-turn and chase, and so
But you have to murder the person.
Yeah, that's the initiation process. That's how you get initiated.
And if it's the initiation process, I'm assuming that we're talking about teenagers here.
Yeah.
So a teenager is told to go and murder another civilian.
Yeah, this is just one example. There are other such initiation processes that are meant to show whether you follow orders. And if you follow orders, you are part of the club. And the orders are different grades of macho-ness. Basically, in Hindi, the word is bhai, right? The bhai-giri is how close you are to that family of brothers. And it's very sad, but that is how it is. And you do this because they are your friends. They cared for you. They loved you. So it's actually a brotherhood of people who love each other.
The brotherhood is real once you're accepted into the gang.
Yeah.
Okay. What if you're not able to get past the initiation process?
Then you're not accepted.
Are you harmed or you're just rejected?
No, they're rejected. As long as they don't know any secrets, right? So now the people that I have had the privilege and honor of teaching meditative practices to, they are formally incarcerated. So gang leaders, people who have spent 10, 20, 30, even 40 years in prison for multiple acts of violence, you can't just leave a gang. So they have been released. They can't just leave the gang. So then my work starts with what can you do for your neighborhood? And the sweet spot is if it is about bringing more health and well-being in the neighborhood, they are game. So that is where my work started, is I collected some of the leaders of these gangs and I trained them as an ambassador of peace. And that is where I feel like telling you a story. Like one of my students is the leader of the Bloods gang. So his name is Andre. And I went to meet him. I had never met a gang leader before. I went to meet him and I said, Andre, I've heard that you are a leader of the community. Can I have 5 minutes of your time? So he said, yeah. So I said, I'm from India and this is my backstory. And I'm here because I feel a sense of connection that whatever I have learned in my life, I think your community can benefit from it. So can I get 5 minutes of your time? And I taught him alternate nostril breathing,
Anulom Vilom
pranayam, and Bastrika pranayam. And he gave me that 5 minutes, okay? And he did 3 rounds of each. He opened his eyes and he said, that was good. So I said, Andre, do this for 5 days. If you like this, on the 6th day, I'll take you for some Indian nice food. The guy calls me on the 6th day. Okay. And I said, see, this is where I would like you to be a teacher. Because you have much more influence than I will ever have. Would you like to be a teacher? He said, yeah, I would love to teach. And that is how I quote unquote recruited
a Bloods leader.
A Bloods leader and several other leaders from 2 other gangs. One is Crips, the other is MS-13.
These are all rival gangs.
These are all rival gangs, yeah.
When you went to meet him,
yeah,
did you go to his house?
He was at a community basketball court.
Okay.
I was told to meet Andre because if you want to do something in that neighborhood, you need to get Andre by your side.
Like a Dada in Mumbai. Same.
Exactly similar.
Okay.
Exactly similar.
And what was the vibe overall in that basketball court? Were they welcoming towards you?
I actually did not even think about it. Because at a point in my life, I feel I'm welcomed everywhere. So that is where, like as a change maker, I feel like we should not have a doubt. I'm here to offer something and you should have confidence. So I was welcomed. I would say I was welcomed. Of course, they must be staring at me like, what's this Indian dude doing here? But yeah, I was welcomed. And then he introduced me to 3 of his friends, Earl and Bo.
All Bloods members?
Yeah, all Blood. There's a Blood neighborhood.
Okay.
And I did something even fascinating. I did the same work that I did with Andre, what I told you, with the people in the Crips and with the Los Angeles Police Department. I went into the precinct and I did the same thing with the sergeant. And that is where I feel it is the first time in American history that opposite gang leaders and the police officers came into a boot camp.
Together.
Inner healing boot camp. Together. So the first few days of that workshop, so it was a 2-month commitment. We meet every Thursday. For the first few weeks, they were doing meditative practices like this. And as an instructor, it's a funny situation.
For people who've not been to these meditation boot camps, what I do want to tell the audience is that it's a very intimate experience between yourself and the instructor, as well as yourself and the people who are doing it with you. Because lots of emotions come out, lots of vulnerable moments happen in those hours. But I can't imagine what you went through.
Unbelievable it was. So, of course, they are not comfortable with each other in the first few weeks. But on the 6th week, So 6 weeks we have been doing meditative practices, breathing exercises. And then I introduced spoken word poetry.
Wow.
So I invited the opposite to sit with each other as a pair, and you will write spoken word poetry together.
As in a Crip member and a Bloods member.
And a gang leader and a police officer.
Gotcha.
Right? So these are opposite stakeholders, right? They are not hanging out with each other. So after 6 weeks, I felt, okay, now is the time that, hey, write something together. Because spoken word poetry is also a way of healing yourself.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. The workshop was in an elementary school because I had won over the heart of the principal of that school. She had given me the school venue. And the logic behind that was that, hey, whether you're a police officer or a gang member or a nurse, you're all part of that elementary school when you were growing up. And the divine works in certain mysterious ways. So after that spoken word session, one of the leader of the Bloods gang and the sergeant, they said they were classmates in the same elementary school, in the same class. That discovery happened. And once that discovery happens, you are not a Bloods leader. You are the Joe and Jim that were classmates. You know what I mean? So that's the healing power of, you can say, any meditative experience is after the trauma is healed, naturally compassion dawns.
The boundaries between you and me kind of get washed away.
Dissolve.
My question is about how the boundaries get formed in the first place. So the first question is, how do two classmates take up such different paths in life? Because I'm assuming they're from the same neighborhood.
Same neighborhood.
And the second question is, amongst the guys who actually accept the gang life related to crime, how do they segregate themselves into Bloods and Crips and the other gangs?
The first question I will try to answer. I think it all goes back to childhood trauma. And it all goes back to the inspirations that you choose to follow. So a police officer, most of the police officers, I would say, in now many cities that I have trained across the United States, they are from those neighborhoods and they don't like the violence that they have seen and experienced in their growing up, and they have chosen to be part of the solution. Right? So their intention is a good intention. That, hey, I want to now be the guardian of my community. And if you don't have that inspiration, and if you have had that childhood trauma exposure, and like we discussed earlier, the group of friends outside become your influencer. Not your grandmother, not your mother, not your father, but that external group of friends. You get sucked into that. And once you get into that, for various reasons, shall I tell you one more story?
Yeah, go for it.
So I know this former gang member that I actually hosted in India, because that's what I also do is I bring these people on a journey in India. And I had taken this group to see the Taj. And Jason came and kissed me on my cheek. So it was the 6th day of the trip. He has 2 kids. So I thought he was homesick. So I said, hey, are you homesick? Do you want my phone? Do you want to call your kids? He said, no. In LA, when I walk, nobody cares about me. You picked me up from there, brought me here. I'm ever grateful to you. And then he shared a story. He said, Mandar, I was taking a picture of the Taj. And I felt a hand going in the back pocket. And I'm a street guy. He said, I'm a street guy. So I knew what was going on. So with one hand, he catches the hand of the person who's trying to put his hand in his pocket. And I turned back and it was a 10-year-old boy. I looked into his eyes and the guy had fear in his eyes and he pointed me to an adult, as if telling me that adult told me to do this. And Mandar, I saw in that 10-year-old me when I was 10-year-old. I was also caught. But nobody had money to release me. I didn't have bail money to release me. And that is my first experience in juvenile hall. So that day, he let go of that 10-year-old. Now, it was a life lesson for me that, he's a former gang member and he has compassion in his heart. He has learned something in his life and he wants to apply that so that the life of a 10-year-old doesn't get spoiled, because he could have easily booked the guy, sent him to police, etc. And then when I visited Los Angeles, he took me around that neighborhood and he told me, I told you that story when I was booked. So what had happened? He had passed in his math exam. Okay, it was a surprise for him. He passed in his math exam and he asked his mom, can I throw a party? So mom said yes. So he invited 10-20 of his friends. 200 people showed up. Okay, 200 people showed up. This 10-year-old boy gets confused. So they pull in money and they order pizza. Domino's pizza guy shows up. They collect cash. And the guy that Jason gives money to, like, okay, pay off the pizza delivery guy, he runs away. He runs away with the money. So the pizza people call the LAPD. And the rule in the hood is if it's a block party, cop car doesn't show up. Chopper shows up. And as luck has it, the guy who stole the money and left, he was found dead. And the weapon was found in Jason's room. So that day, Jason was booked.
As a 10-year-old.
Yes. And his mother did not have money for his bail. So that is how he told me his life started. And it's very, how can you say it? It's very sad that, what do you make out of life? Like, how do you explain what the hell just happened?
I urge every listener to go back to 5th grade and think of themselves as a 10-year-old at this moment. And then come back to Jason's story.
I was speechless. I had tears in my eyes, Ranveer. Because we have taken our life for granted. And that is where I feel just an honor that the Andres and the Jasons and the Philips have welcomed me into their home. Actually, it's a sharp experience for me that in my life in Los Angeles, where I lived 3 years, only 2 people invited me to their home. One was Andre, the leader of the Bloods gang, for a cup of tea. And the other was a leader of the MS-13. When his mother had passed away, he asked me to come and bless his home. And he made the best hot chocolate for me. I can never forget that taste in my mouth.
What is the MS-13? It's another gang.
It's a very violent gang.
Okay.
So my friend, he spent 34 years in prison. Out of that, 7 years was in a solitary confinement. And my parents were actually visiting Los Angeles that year. And, like every Indian middle class father and mother, when I'm having this quote unquote privileged shell successful life, and then I've taken a detour, and the detour is really sharp. It's now in Los Angeles South Central. So my dad asked me, who do you meet? Who are you? So I said, would you like to meet? So I arranged a lunch meeting.
Between an MS-13 member and your
and
parents.
my parents.
Great.
And we went for Indian food. And this is the first time that, my friend had Indian food in his life. And he had brought his girlfriend. Again, somebody else from his own gang. And my father might not like what I'm going to say. My father, in the middle of the meal, says, Mr. Rudy, why did you join a gang? In his typical Marathi accent. Okay. Mr. Rudy has never met my father, but I'm his meditation teacher. His reply, because Papa, they were my friends. They took care of me. My father was never there. Rudy is the most innocent person I know. So innocent. And when he learned meditative practices with me, he even showed me the email address that he had got through divine messages. Rudy G 108. And he said, hey, I just saw this. And when he came to know of the 108, significance of 108, that, the mala has 108 beads and the 109th bead is your guru bead, he was just blown out. Because he's natural. They're natural people.
What is gang warfare? It's shootouts.
Yeah, it can have any manifestation. It can be stabbings, it can be shootouts, it can be violent domestic abuse of the other side's women and children.
They target the women and children as well?
Yes.
What will
Even children and, drive-by shootings. Like I was teaching my workshop in this South Central neighborhood. And I heard gunshots while I was teaching my workshop. And choppers came, because that's the culture of this Los Angeles South Central, is chopper comes.
What do gunshots sound like?
Cut, 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 cut.
It's like firecrackers?
Yeah. And everybody there knew that. And they told me that, these are not firecrackers. These are gunshots. So my students educated me that day. And I saw, because we were teaching in an elementary school, that all the young kids started running to take cover. I have never seen choppers near a school in Houston where I used to live. So I asked the principal of the school, who was standing next to me, that, wow, these kids are intelligent. How do they know that when the chopper comes, you have to take cover? So she said to me, Mr. Apte, come on, this is South Central. This is normal. And in front of my students, I shouted at her, what the hell? How can this be normal? Somebody has to think this is not normal. Only then you can come out of it. So, that is when my students, again, the leaders of this neighborhood, they told me that, the intensity that you are bringing from a different perspective, because they are in that hood. They are in that conversation every day. But a new perspective is where they started appreciating what I was telling them.
There are neighborhoods like this all over America.
Neighborhoods like that all over America, in the backyard of every city. They're called inner cities.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer Show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel, because there's something for everyone.